With the latest on the corporate front, all the market trends, expert opinion, and sound business advice. It is your unique window into the business world, direct from the heart of China.
Hello and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Coming up, we will have half an hour of business news and analysis. On today's show, at this year's Summer Davos, Chinese Premier Li Qiang says the country will continue to foster a first-class business environment. And Shenzhen is in the spotlight for its deepening reform agenda. So what could the city do to become a hub for artificial intelligence and aviation? And now let's begin with our top story. The annual meeting of the new champions, also known as the Summer Davos, was held in northern Chinese city of Tianjin. Chinese Premier Li Qiang delivered a keynote speech at the opening ceremony. He said the country will continue to foster a first-class business environment and keep the doors wide open. He added China will continue to deepen its integration and connectivity with the world market and welcome businesses from all countries to invest and deepen their roots in China. CGTN's Liu Jiaxin has the details.
Well, during the opening plenary of the Summer Davos in Tianjin, Chinese Premier Li Qiang delivers an inspiring speech, also addressing critical challenges right now. He said global economy now sits at a pivotal crossroads with geopolitical fractures disrupting global supply chains and technology revolution now are reshaping economic structures. While confronted with global challenges, do we choose conflict or cooperation? Well, here's the Chinese solution offered by Premier Li. He said China will make the pie bigger through openness. And he said that with the rise of the global south now driving 45% of the world trade versus 30% in 2000, China is seeking more win-win cooperation while pledges to open the door wider to the rest of the world.
新时代需要企业家们发挥更大的作用。
The new era requires entrepreneurs to play bigger roles, assume greater responsibilities, and add new dimensions to entrepreneurship. I encourage you to do more for the greater good. I hope you will always follow the laws of the market, do what is right, champion openness and cooperation, uphold economic globalization, oppose decoupling and serving of supply chains, and call on all sides not to turn trade into a political or security issue. I encourage you to do more for win-win results. I wish you will embrace each other's development with an open and inclusive mind, share resources, draw on each other's strengths, promote market integration and mutual empowerment, and achieve common growth.
He also highlights that China maintains a steady growth regardless of external force, external uncertainties, and China can be a stabilizer of global economy by being an engine that drives 30% of the global growth.
That was Liu Jiaxin reporting. So for more on this, join us on the line now, Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novum Archi Technologies, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. So, Yan, the event in Tianjin features the theme entrepreneurship for a new era. And in Premier Li's speech, he has called for a greater role for entrepreneurs. So, how do you read this message?
Well, I think Premier Li's message is loud and clear. He emphasized that in a market economy, entrepreneurs have their extraordinary insight, creativity, and ability. They can organize resources. They can transform these resources into real productivity. So entrepreneurs really hold the key to developing technologies and producing for the economy. And so he has called for the entrepreneurs to play bigger roles and also assume greater responsibilities to develop the economy. He also encouraged the businesses to do greater good, meaning that they should not just focus on the narrow profits, but really looking at the broader social good and follow the laws of the markets. And he also said, entrepreneurs should try to break new grounds and again to have that innovative spirits, and finally to do more things for win-win results. So it's clear that he's encouraging entrepreneurs both in China and also outside of China to cooperate, and to invest in China, to deepen the roots, as he said, in China. And of course, China has been making great efforts in promoting entrepreneurs. For example, the new law that promote private enterprises. The government is also, rolling out many pro-businesses policies and making policies more transparent and predictable to foster I think a more conducive environment for businesses to thrive and to continue to deepen the reforms to encourage more innovations and also investments.
And Baocheng, so what about the institutionalized policies, framework, and structures to support them?
Well, China has been talking policy level to build the institutional safeguards to protect and also to promote the entrepreneurship. Premier Li attaches great importance to businesses. So this is something that he gives a highlight, and based on which the basic market rules that rely on the protection of property rights, on the rule of law, and also on the level playing fields for fair competition must be ensured so that the better predictability and assurance will be given to those private firms. And then the innovation ecosystem must be there to be able to sustain the economic resilience supported by the private businesses. So it shows that more of the funding and tax incentives will be given to those private firms to support their research and development, to enhance their IP protection, and also to help them to expand their access to particularly a government procurement program. And lastly, I think more of the commitment will be offered to bring up the talent so that more of the education, particularly vocational education, engage with the emerging technologies will be on the top agenda for which human capacity can be further enhanced.
So, so in a world full of geopolitical uncertainties, what kind of economic order do we need? And how can China serve as a stabilizer in a turbulent world?
Well, I think this is a great question. And I think in Premier's speech, he really emphasized the 3 points. And the first point is precisely what you just said. There has been really a lot of changes in the international economic and trade landscape. So that brings a lot of challenges when some countries are imposing unilateral trade protections. And also, these kinds of changes could also bring new opportunities. For example, service trade and trade between the global south has been gaining strength. And so that's, leads to the second point, which is that in this very much changing landscape, it requires more constructive actions. And so Premier Li basically calls for dialogues and calls for more cooperation, beneficial cooperation among countries and help to contribute to each other's development. And so that brings the role of China. I think China is very firstly upholding the multilateral system, and China is contributing directly to the global economy through its own growth and also through its innovations and through its win-win cooperation with the global South countries. So I think, in Premier Li's speech, he talked about how China's growth provides great opportunities for the global economy. China has, 50 trillion yuan worth of consumption and 20 trillion yuan worth of imports. And so that means China could be a potential, a very large and growing market for the rest of the world. So China could be, as he called it, a mega-sized consumption powerhouse on top of being a manufacturing powerhouse. And of course, China has a lot of, leading technologies, and China is also willing to share a lot of these technologies through open source, AI models, and also through technological sharing by establishing demonstration zones in African countries, by set up foreign direct invested enterprises, to share technologies with local partners and to build a lot of vocational training houses in various countries. So I think in all these three different aspects, by upholding multilateral system principle, by developing its own economy and open the door for the rest of the world, and last but not least, by sharing and developing technologies, I think China is really contributing to this very much challenging international economic order.
And Jiahe, so the World Economic Forum has recognized China as a hub for future-looking innovation. And a big part of that is China's private sector, which continues to grow through the digital transformation and green development. So what role does China's private sector play in this kind of areas, such as AI and green energy transition?
Well, I would say the private sector of China is actually putting a lot of work with things like AI, creative technology, green economy, and everything. Because if you look at the structure of China's economy, you look at private sector, they employ much more people in the economy. They are engaging more in sectors like technology, consumption, where you have the latest technologies employed, AI, all these kinds of things. And also there's one more thing regarding private companies is that they are more free with allocating their capital and equities to their employees, their key technicians, these kind of people. It's much easier for you to give out the shares to them because they are private companies. The companies like Tencent and Huawei, they pay their researchers a huge amount of money, usually 10 million RMB per year or even more. They're high-end technicians. So that's why they have this kind of stamina to put out work to innovate the latest technologies, the AI programs, the green economy, all these kinds of things. That's why they play so important a position in these fields.
And Baocheng, so how do you see the role of the Davos Forum as a platform in advancing the global innovation cooperation?
The Davos Forum, especially the Summer Davos, is playing a very important role to bridge multi-stakeholders onto such a platform. It brings together business leaders, political leaders, startups, and academia all across the continent together to share their views and debate on how policy can really move forward. And it is really something that can boost more of the trust through dialogue. So from which many of the Chinese firms, particularly the young startups, can really benefit from higher level of visibility and engage in networking, and they can identify the co-creation opportunities. Davos is also very well known for its global competitiveness index, where the global investment can be highly influenced by their discovery over the business environment different countries can offer. So their latest release also be there to guide many of those investment decisions. And now I think the Summer Davos is also there to promote the digital regulation and in entrepreneurship that is there embedded in the social responsibility and also higher level of ESG standard, so that more of the cross-border innovation can be there to play out. And I think lastly, it also calls on different governments to offer the right type of policy to incubate and promote the entrepreneurship, particularly for the next generations with the new emerging technologies.
And Yan, so what kind of emerging trends have you observed in global entrepreneurship and innovation cooperation? And how significant is innovation in the global economic recovery, especially among the current geopolitical tensions?
Well, I think the entrepreneurship is thriving despite the rising geopolitical tensions. So I think for entrepreneurs today, they not only need to navigate through very complex market situations, but now there is a added layer of these geopolitical uncertainties and also tensions. As we know, for example, in the United States, many entrepreneurs wanted to engage more with China. Jensen Huang, of NVIDIA, he wanted to trade with China. He wanted to cooperate with China in AI development, given that China is taking a lead role in many of the areas in the AI development. And yet, I think the Trump administration's, technological ban and other policies, protectionist policies, make it very difficult for entrepreneurs to navigate through these thick layers of geopolitical uncertainties. So I think, this poses some challenges. And yet I think, entrepreneurs, they understand to be able to thrive in the current geopolitical environment, they need to innovate, they need to cooperate, they need to find ways to overcome a lot of these difficulties to be able to push through some essential, cooperations. In the AI field, for example, many of the cutting edge, the high citing papers typically involve a Chinese co-author. So that means to completely cut ties with China is unrealistic. And in a technological world, it requires a lot of cooperation, between different countries, between different institutions, between different individuals. So I think, again, for entrepreneurs, this is another challenge that they have to overcome. And so I think, many of the entrepreneurs are doing long-term planning. They're trying to find ways to still cooperate with each other despite all the protectionist policies. And of course, they're also trying their efforts to buy some political sort of buy-ins to push through some policies that would work in favor of the kinds of cooperation. And you asked about the significance of innovation. I think this is very important because innovation is really what allow economies to grow in a consistent and sustainable way. Because countries cannot simply rely on more and more intensive investments in labor or capital. They need to have technological innovations to drive up productivity growth. So that's a matter of national economic strength. It is also about cohesion within a country. If a country keeps lagging behind in its economic development and cannot deliver for the people, then the country will be very fragile and very susceptible for external shocks. And I think innovations are also really vital for national security. So we know that countries need to be able to build up their essential industries to provide certain products, certain technologies. They're very important for their national security. So in that sense, innovation is important, cooperation is important. But there are a lot of geopolitical tensions right now that entrepreneurs would have to navigate through.
And Baocheng, so there are 5 themes of this year's Summer Davos, and one of them is investing in people and the planet. So how do you interpret that?
I've been always saying that people are the ends and also the means. If innovation and industrial growth does not service people, then it loses the normative meaning in doing such sort of engagement. So therefore, the end target is that how people can really benefit from all the policy measures, from all the industrial advancement. And in the meanwhile, people are also the means. Therefore, given the big transition that is there to be engaged, we do need to equip the workforce with the digital and green skills. We also need to create a sort of enabling environment to support the entrepreneurial inclusiveness, particularly for women, young people, and also the more of the policy preferences need to be targeted to those underserved regions. And then the healthcare can be promoted with more of the support from technology advancement, particularly artificial intelligence. So the education is there to give people a wider vision and to see more meaning in their life, but more importantly with practical skills to be able to catch up with advancement of technology and to build a better capability to communicate and engage with a larger part of the population so that they can really form a sort of ecosystem for mutual assistance and also the shared prosperity. And in terms of the investing into the planet, this is really the environmental responsibility that all countries need to share. China is highly committed to carbon goals. So the more of the investment is really directed to build a ecological friendly business model, so that you see more of the solar panels, more of the e-cars are being produced. And I think more importantly, consumer education is also very important, because the recent discovery shows that the consumers in their lifestyle, they contribute 53% of carbon emission. So therefore, we need to have a collective efforts from government policy to business community and to consumers to deal with the care of the planet Earth.
Well, we're speaking with Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novum Archi Technologies, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. And after a short break, we'll take a look at what Shenzhen can do to become a hub for artificial intelligence and aviation. Stay with us. You're listening to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Shenzhen is the spotlight for its deepening reform agenda. Despite the global trade tensions, new policies aim to turn the city into a hub for artificial intelligence and aviation. Reforms also encourage overseas investors to establish vocational training institutions and import the advanced teaching resources. Meanwhile, the Payment Connect has been officially launched on the Chinese mainland and in Hong Kong. The first real-time cross-boundary transaction was carried out in Shenzhen. So Jiahe, Shenzhen has been at the forefront of China's economic development, and China has recently outlined a series of reforms to accelerate the development of the high-tech emerging industries in Shenzhen. So tell us, what are the details of these new measures?
Well, if we got the documents here, they got like 15 detailed documents, and they're separated into a few very important parts. The first part actually says that there is a huge amount of reform regarding the using and the organizing of human resource. So this includes a lot of things. For example, protecting the rights of human resource, especially the high-end employees, giving them more benefits, providing more education for their children, all these kinds of things. And this is because if you look at the technology's growth, you're basically relying on high talents. And high talents is actually the most important thing if you want to build a better economy. So that's why this document puts the organizing of high talents and human resource into the very first place. And the second is that they have been, the document has been concentrating on the growing of things like finance, technology, and information. These are the key issues for growing the high-end economy. And if you look at the third one, they want a market economy that is new and that is opened to the global economy. And this is the key of China's economic reform in the past few decades, that we kept on saying we want better technologies, we want new technologies, we want to open to the rest of the world. We never keep our gate closed. And Shenzhen, with its location so close to Hong Kong, which is a pure English-speaking city, this is the reason that we're putting more efforts with Shenzhen for it being an open economy to the world. And finally, there has been more emphasis on the organization of the government to support the whole economy. This is also very important because the government is also is always the key issue behind the growth and especially the organization of the economy.
And so, yeah, the new policies aim to, turn the city into a hub for artificial intelligence. So tell us, what are Shenzhen's advantages in AI technology and, applications?
Well, Shenzhen is very much renowned for its technological innovations and advancements. In Shenzhen, it has 2,600 major AI companies, and with 140,000 AI professionals. And so in terms of these already very I would say a mature industrial supply chain for in electronics, and now couple that with many of these AI companies, I think this gives Shenzhen a really unique advantage. Not to mention, I think the government has trying its very best to try to attract and retain talents, to secure finance, and to really help to provide, institutional support for the entrepreneurs. And Shenzhen's R&D spending has been rising by almost 14% every year in the past few years, and now it's about 6.5% of its city's GDP. And we know Shenzhen is big. Last year, Shenzhen has produced over $513 billion worth of GDP. That's equivalent to the size of a country like Norway, and it's even bigger than countries like Malaysia and Philippines. So this is really an economic powerhouse, and Shenzhen definitely has its own, a lot of advantages in providing very mature supply chain for AI companies, for robotics, and for other electronics. So I think, given that it is home to also some of the robotics giants like DJI, UBTech, and huge number of other hardware companies, it is very strong for the integration of AI and other hardware. And so that really gives it a very specific, advantages compared to other cities like Hangzhou, which is very good at integration of AI and AI services and cloud platforms with e-commerce, payments, and logistics, and also compared to Shanghai, which is very good at global connections and precision engineering, and also to be able to develop some of the cutting-edge research. So I think Shenzhen is really unique, and it's also complementary to other cities in China.
Well, we're speaking with Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University, Liu Baocheng, Professor from the University of International Business and Economics, and also Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novim Archi Technologies. And that's all the time for this edition of Biz Today. To listen to this episode again or to find more previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching for Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening.